Canada men's basketball's dream of an Olympic medal is over. After quarterfinal elimination to France, we're going to break down the performance, where it went wrong, and where the program is heading in today's video. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Amateur Sports 2, the second channel in the Amateur Hour Production Network for additional Toronto Raptors content typically, but in today's video, because we're just in the wake of Canada's elimination in the men's basketball at the 2024 Paris Olympics, I felt as though this was a good place to provide the first reaction to the way the game went down in the 82-73, and we will call it an upset loss against the host nation French team. Canada were favored by 8.5 or so points in this one, so I think that's just enough to say this is a bit of an upset. Definitely didn't go into the game ruling out a France victory, but definitely went into the game with the expectation that Canada were going to get over the line, but the expectation of that being the case was quickly put to bed in this one because France jumped out to a massive lead in the first quarter, and ultimately they just did enough to hold on to that for the rest of the game. It was never really a case where, well, Canada never really made it too close. Twice they got it back to 5 points, but in the end, it was just the early woes by Canada that caused the issues here. And where did those issues come from? Initially, a large string of three-pointers made by the French team, but then it turned into France's size becoming too overwhelming for Canada's team. And we'll discuss all of the matchups and where things went wrong for Canada there. But, you know, the biggest part of the game that went wrong, again, was the start of the game where guys like Cordonnier for France were knocking down 3 after 3. Canada in this one just could not get going from the perimeter in the early phase of the game. No shots were falling, and you really started to feel the home court advantage. It was loud in that arena. Not something I fully took into consideration going into the game, but you could tell it energized the French team, and Canada, honestly, like shell-shocked to start the game. In the end, Canada shoot 24% from 3, 38% from the field. Kind of upsetting. Free throw was a bit of a big discrepancy. I thought the officiating wasn't fantastic, but most of the free throw discrepancy comes from the size disadvantage that Canada had. So we knew coming into this game, France had very good bigs, not great guard play. Canada had really good guards, not great big play. And one of the problems with Canada's bigs, like we knew the depth with the bigs was going to be a problem with Powell, Birch, Olynyk, Lyles, those guys, like decent players, but no real authoritative figure as far as size is concerned. And a lot of those guys can't really play together. The guy you would want to see play with another big as the 4, and you have to go to double big systems, is Olynyk. But Olynyk was just terrible at these Olympics, unfortunately, so you couldn't trust him with that many minutes. So where Canada struggled were the mismatches because they did not have enough size. They would only have one big on the floor. France dominated with guys like Yabusele, who ended up having 22 points, 8 of 9 from the line. Lesor came off the bench for France, 9 of 14 on free throws, 13 points. Wembanyama, so only 6 free throws. Like Canada managed Wembanyama really well here, but it was the other players stepping up big time. Lesor, Yabusele, I said Cordonnier with the way he started the game. Evan Fournier was fantastic off the bench. FIBA Fournier was a problem for Canada in this one. And there just wasn't the size to deal with it. Not only like was there a lack of size to deal with it from like just the initial Powell, the initial big there, but the forwards constantly finding those mismatches. And the reason Canada were able to afford, or not able, but the reason Canada afforded a lot of those mismatches, they wanted to play this very switch-heavy defense, which has been working because Brooks is such a good defender, because Dort is such a good defender. Shea can hold his own. Barrett can kind of do a job, and Powell can get on the perimeter a little bit. The problem with these switches is that they were like a lot of times when France would have 2 bigs on the floor, and Gobert like barely even played in this game, but France would have 2 bigs on the floor, 2 athletic bigs on the floor at that, and we're constantly getting switches. So, you know, when Canada could live with a switch onto a big with one of their guys, having 2 guys switched onto a big just became way too big of a problem. No pun intended, but constantly they were getting mismatches down low, those players. They were picking on it. They were getting offensive rebounds. Canada ended up with more of those offensive rebounds, but still were punished by what France were able to do on the second chance possessions as well. punished by France with the free throws they had to afford them because they really just couldn't, they didn't have any answer when they made those switches. So maybe a touch switch heavy here, but ultimately, I mean, we look at the way the game shaped out. Canada did okay here after the first quarter. They lost the first quarter by 13, end up winning the rest of the game by 4. They were down by 16.5. They were down by 19 early in the third quarter. They fought back well, but they just dug themselves too big of a hole. And part of that, as good as Shea was, RJ Barrett solid as ever again, there wasn't a lot of support elsewhere. Brooks has been so good and so consistent for Canada. Not in this one. 2 points, 1 of 9 from the field. Had his only bucket of the game relatively late in the game. Jamal Murray just never showed up in this one. And I think the problem here as well, Jamal Murray went 3 of 13. Part of the problem here for Murray, like, he was just killing shot clocks. Like, it wasn't a case, like in other games, Murray's stats were bad, but like he was a participant on offense. He was affecting the game on offense, making the right pass, taking his spot up threes. Not in this one. He was hunting shots a lot, killing shot clocks, killing possessions, turning the ball over. It was really, really bad from Jamal Murray. He should not have played as many minutes as he did. Tough that Canada never got Nickeil Alexander-Walker going this tournament. Andrew Nembhard, down game. There just wasn't a lot of support. Shea had to play too many minutes. Kind of felt that with some of the missed free throws with the fatigue settling in. It was just too much for him and Barrett, particularly for Shea in general, to take on this game. Not enough support. France got the quote-unquote lesser players to really show up for this one. Like, Wemby only had 7. Gobert didn't play, but it was the other guys, like we said earlier, that were stepping up for this team. And Canada just didn't really have that here. But as much as it's disappointing, Canada were the second favorites behind the U.S. to win this tournament. They were on the opposite side of the U.S. in this bracket. So Canada were favored to get to the final on their side of the bracket, losing the quarterfinals. But, you know, I don't want to be too greedy here. It's upsetting, but this program has come a very, very long way. They didn't even make it to the Tokyo Olympics just 3 years ago. They lost in the qualifiers. They lost. I remember watching them lose to Greece there. I want to say they lost to like Czechia or Turkey as well. I don't know. I should have verified that. But point being, 3 years later, they come to the Olympics fresh off a bronze medal at the FIBA World Cup. They beating U.S. there in the bronze medal game, no less. They come to the Olympics in the group of death, win all 3 games in the group of death. Just could not get over the line here. This program has come such a long way. Players want to represent Canada again, and hopefully we can keep this going here. Hopefully this is the start of something special, because Canada is, I believe it's still the second highest represented country in the NBA, of course, behind the United States. Canada basketball isn't used to success like this. So let's hope this is a start of a string of Olympic appearances. Let's hope this is a start of a string of strong showings at FIBA World Cups and other international tournaments, because this is still a team to be very proud of. It's a shame they didn't show up here. It's a shame they may lose Jordi Fernandez as head coach, because he's taken over as Brooklyn Nets head coach. But the program is in an exceptional place right now. Lots of great young players led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We're disappointed here. It should have been better than this, but the future is very bright for this program. Long may it continue. So what do you make of this loss? What did you make of Canada's appearance at the Olympics? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. That's all from the channel today. If you want more Raptors content, subscribe over here to Amateur Sports 2. Check out my other channels as well. And here's another video you may enjoy. Now that Canada men's basketball is done at the Olympics, it's all Raptors all the time with Amateur Sports. Don't miss out. Get subscribed. Join the Amateur Hour Army today.